All right, it's 10 o'clock. We're going to get going. I'll go ahead and lead us in the pledge, so I'm going to rise it up. Okay, welcome back. I'm going to open the public hearing for the House Election Law Committee for House Bill 1667FN, establishing the first in the nation security task force to coordinate planning for presidential campaign events. And we'll recognize Representative Sweeney for the purpose of introduction. Representative Sweeney, welcome back to Election Law.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's great to be here. Thank you to the members of the House Election Law Committee. HB 1667 is a truly bipartisan piece of legislation that would establish a task force to review security protocols, procedures, and put together a draft comprehensive plan that campaigns can utilize as they're building out their security protocols for the 2028 presidential primary in the state. But then it will just be on record for any campaign running in the state of New Hampshire to be able to utilize for future elections, and something that we can continue to evolve. We have seen, and it feels like an increasing amount of violence at political events, so much so that the impetus for this bill was hearing from family members and friends who are not political whether or not they would want to go to political events in the future in the climate where it just doesn't feel safe and secure. Obviously, we have a proud tradition in the state of New Hampshire where every 4 years in our presidential primary, residents from in New Hampshire and political tourists from all over the country come to our state to see candidates for president up close and personal, to meet them, to interact with them. And I think there's an importance to make sure that we're doing everything we can just to put out the guidelines for the campaigns to use as here's how to maintain safety in your event. So the task force is going to have certainly law enforcement be present in it. Campuses that host a lot of these events will be present in it. Both of the state's political parties will have representatives on the task force, just to make sure that there are a lot of existing best practices that campaigns have when it comes to making sure that, you know, the people in the room are who you know they are supposed to be, that you have a registration process in place, and that if you have security concerns, to connect with the local police department or the campus police department, or if you hire private security. This would really just be a task force that puts together, here's the best comprehensive plan a campaign can utilize to make sure that everybody is safe and secure, making sure that not only are the candidates themselves safe, but also the people that are attending the event safe. And I think I could speak more to it, but I really do think we get this up and running, and this group will build a pretty comprehensive guidebook for campaigns to utilize to just ensure the safety of everybody. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Questions from the committee? Representative Lane.
Thank you, and thanks for taking the question. Do candidates not already have this in place for themselves? So I'm just saying, are we being redundant here?
Thank you for the question. I don't think it's being redundant. I think there are some campaigns that have security measures in place. I think there's a lot of campaigns that still come to New Hampshire that aren't as well funded as the other ones, and they might be kind of just more fly by night, like they'll go to the diners and whatnot to interact with folks. I think it's having this good guidebook not only for how candidates and campaigns can safely participate, but also here are good suggestions from members of the public, what they should be on the lookout for, how they should attend these events to be safe. Would also just inspire more confidence in the public that it's safe to go to a political event.
Thank you.
Representative Purdom O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for taking my question. Is there outreach to the two political parties as well? I'm reading through this quickly. I don't see that.
Yep. So thank you very much for the question. So one representative appointed by the New Hampshire Republican State Committee and one representative appointed by the New Hampshire Democratic State Committee. That makes sure that the parties are included in this, and also the parties know best practices, and the operatives that are in the parties think about this sort of stuff constantly whenever they're having an event, and having those voices heard at the just how logistically, how do you have an open town hall where you want to encourage members of the public, political parties, and both of them, they're thinking about that constantly. So having their voice there will be important.
Further questions from the committee? Representative Muirhead.
Mr. Chair, thank you. I noticed there's a number of, there's a large role for universities in the bill. There would be one member from the university system in New Hampshire, one member from community colleges, a member from private universities, and also 2 gubernatorially appointed experts in campus free speech. I wanted to invite you to comment on the presence of people from universities on this and what the designers of the bill have in mind.
Thank you for the question. So obviously it's forward facing in that there will be a lot of events on college campuses during the primary. I also drafted the framework for this probably a week or 2 after the Charlie Kirk assassination that happened on a college campus. So when I was drafting it, it was fresh of mind of being, we have these campuses that are large, open facilities that are either state-owned institutions or private colleges that have this proud tradition of hosting these events. And I wanted to make sure that we had their voice in mind, so that there was going to be another component where there's going to be some security element to it to help strengthen the colleges and campuses. I did not include that in the final version of the bill, but I still wanted to make sure their voices were heard in the task force, regardless.
Thank you. Could I have a follow-up, please?
Follow up.
Yeah, I think that'll might be appreciated if the bill passes by these institutions. The last bit had to do with the experts on campus free speech and I think campus civil liberties. I've been concerned my whole career about campus free speech, and I might be called an advocate for defending and extending, the scope of free speech on campuses. But I don't know if I could be called an expert. And on the other hand, I do know one of the interesting developments on campuses is we have sort of trained staffers to help those of us who plan events deal with interruptions and protests in a way that preserves the occasion for free speech. So maybe those people would be called experts, but I'm a little confused about who an expert might be. I
appreciate the question. I can't say I put that much thought into it to define what the expert would be, and maybe that needs some refinement in the committee. But the goal of it, and they came out of the point where, obviously, when we talk about making things more secure and adding more security into place, there is that balance to make sure that we're still protecting free speech. And a protester has the right to free speech, certainly. You have the right to interrupt an event, even if as the host you don't want them to interrupt the event. So it's trying to balance out that so that whatever security measures we're supporting, we're making sure that it still passes the freedom of speech aspects and the freedom of expression and association that people have, so that it's not trampling on it. Well, that was my intent. If we can define expert better or iron that out, I wouldn't be opposed to it.
Further questions from the committee? Representative Prim O'Brien.
Thank you. I have a question about the committee that it's in. It lists environment and agriculture. Is that a typo, or is it going to that committee for some reason?
I did not write that part of the bill. I believe it's just in election law. There is a fiscal note, but I don't think it's actually. I think it's less than $10,000, so it's not actually an early bill, is my understanding. But I could be wrong.
It's not an early bill.
So it's just you guys, and then if it passes, it's on to the other people.
We don't talk about
Yeah.
they who shall not be named.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Wilhelm, you wish to speak?
Thank you, Chairman, committee members. For the record, I'm Matt Wilhelm. I represent Hillsborough District 21, proud co-sponsor of House Bill 1667. speaking in support of the legislation. On a brief personal note, because this bill is rooted in my own experience, my own political experience, I first got involved in politics as a student at Plymouth State College, where I served in student government and was responsible for bringing presidential candidates to campus during the 2004 presidential primary cycle. That work, bringing campaigns and students and administrators and public safety together, it led to an internship on a campaign in 2004, and then in the governor's office in 2005. So from there, did grassroots advocacy on presidential primary campaigns, and then went to work for an upstart presidential candidate in 2020. So this is a very important bill to me and to other young people who get engaged in the political process through our first in the nation presidential primary. Across those experiences on campuses and on campaigns and in communities, I've seen firsthand both the promise of New Hampshire's first in the nation primary and the growing complexity involved in hosting high-profile political events safely, fairly, and accessibly. New Hampshire's presidential primary is one of the most important civic institutions in our state. It brings candidates directly into our communities, onto our campuses, into close contact with voters in a way that's increasingly rare in modern politics. That closeness is a strength, but it also creates real planning and coordination challenges as campaigns grow larger and the security environment becomes more complex. House Bill 1667 is a proactive, thoughtful response to that reality. It doesn't change election law, it doesn't regulate speech, and it does not create new enforcement authority. Instead, it establishes a temporary bipartisan task force focused on coordination, preparation, and guidance so that communities are not reinventing the wheel every time a presidential candidate visits New Hampshire. I want to emphasize what I believe is most important about this bill, and that's that it is content neutral and values driven. The task force is explicitly charged with protecting free speech while ensuring public safety. That balance reflects core New Hampshire values: open civic participation, peaceful protest, and respect for constitutional rights, alongside a shared responsibility to keeping people safe. The structure of the task force also matters. It brings together state and local law enforcement, higher ed, and representatives from both major political parties, along with experts in civil liberties. That diversity is intentional. It helps to ensure that the guidance developed is practical, balanced, and trusted across institutions and communities. From an election law perspective, the bill supports voter confidence and election integrity by helping to ensure that presidential events, whether rallies or town halls or campus forums, house parties even, are well coordinated, predictable, and welcoming to the public. When communities feel prepared, supported, participation really increases and tensions have the opportunity to decrease, which is going to be really important in this upcoming cycle given the political violence that's been happening across the country. In short, House Bill 1667, it's about planning ahead, it's about coordinating better and upholding democratic traditions that make New Hampshire special without expanding government authority or limiting participation. Thanks.
Questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you. I only have one other pink card, so Representative Bay, if you could do me the solid and grab the blue sheet for 1667. And Captain Matt Amatucci?
Yes, sir.
Amatucci, almost got there. And he spoke, so.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, committee members. My name is Matt Amatucci with New Hampshire State Police. We're neutral on this bill, but just have some comments for the committee to consider when making its decision. So New Hampshire law enforcement agencies already coordinate with federal partners like the Secret Service and other federal and state partners under established mutual aid agreements during presidential campaign visits. These protocols ensure candidate safety without requiring any additional task force, making this bill redundant. Forming a new task force adds layers of planning and reporting that could slow down real-time decision-making during high-profile events. Security threats evolve quickly, and law enforcement needs flexibility, not more administrative steps to respond effectively. The bill mandates reports and plans to be shared widely, which could inadvertently expose sensitive security strategies. Publishing detailed security guidance and after-action reports risks giving bad actors insight into law enforcement tactics. Current mutual aid agreements allow seamless collaboration between state, local, and federal agencies. This bill could complicate those relationships by introducing new protocols that conflict with established federal security standards, reducing efficiency during candidate visits. This bill does not specify how additional training, communication systems, and administrative support will be funded. Without dedicated resources, this creates an unfunded mandate that strains state and local budgets. Presidential candidates receive protection from federal agencies, primarily the Secret Service. State and local law enforcement assists under mutual aid, but ultimate responsibility lies with federal authorities. Creating a state-level task force duplicates efforts without adding meaningful security benefits or cost savings. I'd be happy to answer any questions that the committee may have.
Yeah. So you guys signed it as neutral, but that didn't sound very neutral. It didn't sound very.
So I think the main premise is it wouldn't change much of what we do, but what we do going out would be problematic, and who we have to work with could be problematic.
Further questions from the committee, Representative Colonel O'Brien?
Thank you. Thank you for taking my question. Thank you for being here, and thank you for what you do for our state. What if there was an amendment made that expressly put more confidentiality in this process so that the issues that you bring up would not be a problem? I do understand what you're saying, and I think those are valid concerns. I really appreciate you talking about that. If there was an amendment that made it, the whole process more confident, maybe aspects of it not open to the public, to maintain that, would that be good?
So thank you for the question. How it works now is if there's a protected person, that law enforcement agency, whoever protects them, will request our assistance. So if you have a governor coming from out of state, you have a president, vice president, you have a cabinet member, somebody who's protected, typically the Secret Service or whomever will reach out to us and say, we're coming in on this date and a plan will be developed. We work collaboratively with local agencies if they're going to a school, wherever they're going. There's a significant amount of work that goes into those plannings. Depending on who it is, months in advance, certainly weeks and days in advance. There's a significant amount of resources. And just looking at this, we see it as this is being done by a lot of stakeholders already, to include universities and wherever they're going, working with their security, working with the faculty, working with those agencies, if you will.
Further questions? Representative Muirhead?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, sir. And I did just want to underline the sense that this doesn't sound very neutral, and that the message seems to be that the bill would complicate mutual aid relationships, decrease response time, add unnecessary bureaucracy and cost, and compromise security. And all those things seem very negative. But let me just ask about a different kind of scenario, not a protected person, but an unprotected person, like, say, former Representative Dean Phillips, who is running against former President Joe Biden in the 2024, Democratic sort of primary that the DNC didn't really want us to have up here, but that we had anyway. Dean Phillips is up here, and he's not a protected person, and he's got he's running on a shoestring. Maybe his campaign would want to know, what steps they could take to just make his visits more secure. Would a plan like the one that this bill, recommends be a help to a kind of upstart candidate like that? And we see a lot of those in primaries.
Yes, thank you for the question. It could. Typically, a situation like that, they're probably paying for additional security and things like that they want above and beyond whatever venue they're going to. So the venue would be responsible for that security, but not the individual, just the overall security. When we talk about protected people that come into our state, we pick them up at the line or the airport, and we we own their safety, if you will, throughout their visit until they're back on the plane or to a state line, and the next, state picks them up. So if for example, former President Bush will be up in Kennebunk, he'll come down. We'll pick up that escort at the main line, just to New Hampshire, through New Hampshire to the Mass line, and then Mass State Police, along with Secret Service. But even something like that takes days, and we're going 18 miles through the state. But the amount of resources that go into even something as simple as that, because we know what's at stake, and it just takes one, and we're determined that it won't happen on our watch.
Further questions? Representative, I'm going to go to Representative C, Representative Lanes, because we're...
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for taking my question. Is there anything on this list of things here that are would be above and beyond what you already have that would suggest that your existing security protocols should be enhanced?
Thank you for the question. Perhaps public awareness in some aspects, but in my opinion, that's a double-edged sword. What you're providing to the 99.9% of good people is great information, but you always have that outlier, that lone wolf, which is the concern of everybody. They want these plans. They want to know what it is that we're looking to do. There's often times where we won't even announce the route of where we're going. Certainly don't do it to the public. But I mean, you see it when presidential candidates come through. Certainly when the president of the United States comes to the state, we're covering every overpass. I mean, those things aren't secrets, but that's strategic. We have boats in the water. We do things right, in my opinion, in the state. Not that other states don't. I can't speak to them, but we dedicate every resource that we have when those individuals come into the state to protect them.
Further questions? Representative Lane.
Thank you. Thanks for taking my question. You probably said this, and I must have missed it when I was taking notes. What is a protected person?
Thank you for the question.
Or who is a protected person, I guess. Yeah.
So that's determined by the Secret Service. They will determine, and I don't know what the criteria is, but I remember back in 2016 when Bernie Sanders was finally picked up by the Secret Service. He was coming into New Hampshire that day, and we picked him up at the Vermont line and brought him, and we protected him throughout that. But I don't know what changed. I don't know if it's, X amount of interest in that individual. Again, I apologize. I just don't know what that criteria is. But the Secret Service or whatever agency will determine if they're protected. And typically it's that law enforcement agency reaching out to the New Hampshire State Police, for example, and saying, we're requesting mutual aid as we're bringing in a protected person. But that agency, the Secret Service, for example, they'll reach out to Londonderry Police and say, we're going to be flying into Manchester Airport. We're requesting mutual aid from your agency. This is what we're looking for. And we will work with them because typically Londonderry will be there. We will be there because we'll be taking them from, throughout the state to Manchester, for example. Manchester will also be requested for mutual aid. And potentially other towns in between. There might be a stop at a restaurant. So there'd be an advancement there by the Secret Service and local agencies and state police to ensure that that's a safe place for them to go. So there's a lot of moving pieces. But to answer your question, it really comes down to the Secret Service will decide if an individual is protected as it relates to president candidacy.
This technically isn't a follow-up. It's actually another question. Thanks. one of the campaigns calls, I don't know, the state police or whoever does this work, the contact person. Would you give them information, or does it have to be through the Secret Service? So if one of the campaigns calls, can you work with them directly?
Thank you for the question. I think it depends, but it's typically the law enforcement agency that is assigned to that person. If they aren't assigned, we'd probably try to give them some guidance, but short of them hiring, details, and that's typically at venues. I don't know of us ever having details for an unprotected person. I'm not saying it's never happened. I'm not aware of an instance in which we did that.
Further questions? Seeing none, thank you. I don't have any other pink cards. So online was 1 in support, 6 opposed, including somebody who opposed it because they wanted us to stop passing bans on gender affirming care. So I think they had the wrong bill. I do read it, and then I get to laugh sometimes when I'm just like, that wrong bill. Blue sheet was empty, so we will close the public hearing for House Bill 1667. The members will be allowed to rejoin, and we will go straight, open and close our notice to executive session. We're coming back. We're recessed. Sorry, I should say we're closing it. We're recessing it. Going to open the public hearing for House Bill 1601 FN, requiring the Secretary of State to create a voter education program that includes information on recent changes to voting laws and recognize Representative Wilhelm for the purpose of introduction.
Thank you, Chairman. For the record, Matt Wilhelm, Hillsborough 21, prime sponsor of House Bill 1601, along with Chairman Berry. House Bill 1601 is straightforward. It directs the Secretary of State to create a voter education program that informs New Hampshire voters about recent changes to our voting laws. Over the past several election cycles, this legislature has enacted a significant number of changes to election and voter registration laws. Some of those changes affect what identification is required, when and which pieces of documentation may be requested, and what options are available to voters at the polls. And regardless of where any of us fall in those policy debates, which is carefully documented in the House Journal, I think we can all agree that voters should clearly understand the rules that apply to them before they show up to vote. Confusion at the polls helps no one. It creates frustration for voters, additional pressure on election workers and moderators, and can undermine confidence in the process itself. A voter education program is one of the most effective ways to reduce those problems before Election Day ever arrives. House Bill 1601 does not change who can vote, how votes are counted, how elections are administered. It doesn't advocate for any position or outcome. It simply ensures that accurate, up-to-date information about the law is available to the public. The bill is also fiscally responsible. It uses $50,000 of Help America Vote Act HAVA funds that are specifically intended to support voter education, election administration, and voter confidence. There is no impact on the state's general fund. Secretary of State's office already serves as the most obvious, nonpartisan source of election information in New Hampshire. This bill builds on that role by giving clear direction and resources to ensure that voters know what has changed and what is expected of them. At its core, House Bill 1601 is about transparency, clarity, and fairness. When voters understand the rules, elections run more smoothly, election officials can do their jobs more effectively, and public trust in our democratic process is strengthened. So I urge my colleagues to pass 1601. Ought to pass. Thanks.
Other questions from the committee? Seeing none. Oh, I apologize. Representative Wood.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for taking my question. Couple of quick things. What is different with this than what they're doing now? And this is one question. Sorry.
Sure. Thanks for the question, Representative. My understanding is that the vast majority of the education that the Secretary of State's office does around the changes to election laws are with election officials, with local election officials, so they know how to administer those local elections. I think certainly those of us in this room and in the larger chamber that we serve in on Thursdays, we're pretty aware of what those changes are. Otherwise, as a voter, you need to be following the news to understand what the changes to the voting laws are, or know exactly where to find it on the Secretary of State's website. And so the idea here is to put some resources behind some proactive public education around the changes to the voting laws in the last few years.
Now, so is this supposed to be meant for one-time event, or is this something that $50,000 seems to be focused on one teaching or one training, for lack of a better word? Is this something? What was that? Yes, thank you.
Yeah, so my understanding, and I don't have the bill in front of me, but it's a one-time expenditure. I think we could think of it as essentially a pilot program. Let's see what we get out of it and then evaluate whether or not more HAVA funds should be spent for further education, while also keeping an eye on what kind of changes this committee and our colleagues in the House and the Senate and the governor pass in the future, and what further voter education might be necessary.
Thank you. That's exactly what I was trying to find out.
Thanks, Representative.
Thank you. Thank you for the help.
I got you. Next, any other questions? Seeing none, thank you. Next up is Kristen Evans from Able, New Hampshire.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to testify in support of House Bill 601. For the record, my name is Kristen Evans, and I am the Director of Policy for Able, New Hampshire, which is a statewide disability justice organization that works to protect and expand the civil and human rights of people with disabilities in New Hampshire. At its core, HB 1601 recognizes a simple truth, which is a right that people do not understand cannot be meaningfully exercised. Voting rights are no exception. New Hampshire has made repeated and significant changes to its election laws in recent years, yet the state has failed to ensure that voters, particularly voters with disabilities, older voters, low-income voters, and first-time voters, are given clear, accessible, and accurate information about those changes. HB 1601 addresses that failure directly. This bill does not expand bureaucracy. It does not change who can vote or how votes are counted. It does something far more fundamental and far more necessary. It ensures voters are informed. For people with disabilities, access to information is often the barrier, not apathy, not confusion, not lack of civic interest. When voting requirements change and those changes are communicated inconsistently in inaccessible forms or not at all, the result is predictable. People are disenfranchised in practice, even if not statute. Some may argue that New Hampshire already provides voter information, and that argument ignores reality. If current systems were sufficient, we would not hear from voters who are turned away, confused, or fearful from making a mistake. We would not see voters with disabilities unsure whether their identification is valid, whether assistance is allowed, or whether they risk penalties for honest errors. Voter education is not partisan. Confusion is. If we were serious about protecting the right to vote, then we must be just as serious about protecting the right to understand how to vote. Able, New Hampshire urges this committee to recommend HB 1601 as ought to pass. Democracy does not defend itself. It must be maintained deliberately, accessibly, and honestly. And this bill does exactly that. Thank you.
Questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you. Last up is Kaylee Estradio, and Representative Bay, if you could do me the honor of grabbing the blue sheet, please, and thank you.
Good morning, Chairman Berry and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. For the record, my name is Kaylee Estradio. I am the Development Associate for Open Democracy, a nonpartisan nonprofit representing over 38,000 voters across New Hampshire, and I'm testifying today in support of HB 1601. Voters can't follow rules they don't understand, and this bill helps ensure that when election laws change, voters will receive a clear, accurate, and accessible information about what is required of them. Even in years without major changes, the average voter may not recall every single procedural requirement for Election Day, and when new requirements are added, the need for proactive voter education becomes even more critical. Throughout my experience this past fall, serving as a nonpartisan poll observer with the New Hampshire Campaign for Voting Rights, I repeatedly observed people at the polls arrive prepared to vote, only to learn that documentation requirements for registration had changed. Many were surprised and frustrated, not because they were unwilling to comply, but because they had not encountered clear, repeated information explaining these new rules ahead of Election Day. In marketing, the rule of 7 refers to the principle that people typically need to encounter information multiple times before it is remembered and acted upon. Voter education works the same way. A single website posting or announcement is often not enough to ensure that voters fully understand new requirements, particularly when they affect registration or absentee voting procedures. Having dedicated programming specifically focused on communicating new voting laws helps ensure that these changes are not lost within broader voter information materials. When voters clearly understand what has changed and what has not, they are better able to prepare ahead of time, election officials will face fewer last-minute complications, and the voting process will run more smoothly for everyone involved. Thank you for your attention to this issue and for your continued work to support New Hampshire voters, and I respectfully urge you to vote OTP on HB 1601.
Will you be taking questions?
Yes.
Are there questions? Seeing none, thank you. The blue sheet was blank? Right? Did I lose the blue sheet? Okay, it was blank, sorry. Online, I should have had it peeled up. I apologize. Online, 1601 was 280 in support, 1 opposed, 0 neutral. The public hearing for House Bill 1601 is closed. We're going to go into executive session really quickly. No? Okay. Hold on. All right. Well. We'll do some of the easy ones. Okay. We'll open the executive session for House Bill 1604, requiring suitable public facilities such as schools and town halls be made available as polling places upon request by local election officials. And I'd like to recognize Representative Gosofsky for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that the committee recommend House Bill 1604 as ought to pass.
Is there a second? Representative Quayle seconds. Is there discussion on the motion of ought to pass on House Bill 1604? Representative Lane is recognized. He can if he wishes, but he's looking like he's deferring to you, or you guys can rock, paper, scissors for it. I don't care.
I'll speak on it first.
All right, go ahead, Representative Gosofsky.
House Bill 1604 is a clarification bill which fixes an unintended loophole. RSA 658 already requires selectmen and ward officers to designate suitable polling places, but it does not clearly require publicly owned facilities to make space available when they are the only viable option. This bill is limited, practical, and based in real experience, which exposes this loophole. And just for further clarification, if I may, the original LSR, when I put it, first filed it, I put in publicly owned facilities in line 4 and 5, because I know we've had a discussion with town and city-owned facilities. So I just want to clarify that point, why that was changed, because our esteemed chairman, when he read that, said that could also imply federal or state-owned facilities. And that's not the intent of this. So to make that designation that when a selectman goes to choose a viable place to hold elections, no, he doesn't have the option of picking a state facility or a federal facility also. Must be town-owned. So I just wanted to make that clarification because I know we had some discussion around that.
Okay. So further discussion, Representative Lane.
That was the point that I was going to ask about, was because some of these are owned by school districts. So it would not, I guess we had some ideas about amending the language to make sure that school districts were included, and also, I guess maybe county, but I guess that would be, so I'm just asking if that was considered and rejected for the reasons that you just outlined.
You feel free to answer if you want.
Yes. On line 3 of the bill, the heading says use of public buildings as polling places. So I think that may cover that understanding. So again, it was to clarify
Including
that the
schools,
town
town
cannot
boards.
use a state or federally funded facility as it was originally put. Because if we just put publicly owned, I mean, to me, I don't know how we can adequately change that language to make that understanding. The motive behind it was simply just to fix that loophole. You give somebody the authority to find a polling place to hold elections, and then that place could actually say no, could cause problems. So that was just really to clarify that. And again, being a selectman in town, we would obviously work with the facility and all that. We wouldn't just go barging in saying, hey, we get the right to do this under law, blah, blah, blah. It wouldn't be that way. So I don't know if that helps clarify. I'm more confused.
Representative Newsom.
I think what our representative from Concord is asking is, how do we give the right to the select board to commandeer school property?
Okay, I wouldn't look at it as commandeering. Like I said, we would work together with the facility. Is the intent behind the bill?
I understand the
Would you like
intent.
to follow up?
Yep, sorry.
Yep, go ahead.
The intent is one thing, but the wording is another. And when it goes to, if this were to go to court, or a select board says, hey, what can we do in this situation? They're going to look at the language of this bill and say, hey, I have the right to go to and use the schools. It doesn't say that the schools have to be consulted. It doesn't say they have to agree. It just gives that right to the select board to take property of a different entity.
Further questions? Representative Gilmore.
Okay, so I've been a moderator for forever. Finally, at my last 4 places that I moderated, we used the school building. The school, city owned. The school didn't like it. The city owns the building. It's the best school. It's the best polling place I've had. So I think in terms of the question proceeding, I don't see how the town wouldn't have that power. Granted, I know the school districts, the city school district, so perhaps in the school districts that multi-towns exist in, that might create a wrinkle, but I would hope that, you need a place to vote, and with resistance, we have the best place we've had ever. Thank you.
And I would add that, clause 3, the municipality shall be responsible for reasonable costs directly related to such use, including custodial services, utilities, security, and otherwise agreed by the parties. I think that does address the concern of, because I think Representative Newsom is right. We are allowing them to effectively commandeer property that they don't technically own, but that's the point of the law, and we live in a Dillon Rule state, and we can do those things. Whether or not we should, I leave to the members. Whether or not we can, that really is not up for debate. But I think that the core problem behind the financial implication of that, especially in a school district which is not owned by a town, I think with clause 3, with that monetary part in there, I think that would address the concerns outside of just straight up using the facilities, right? So if it's a money issue, that's covered. They use the reasonable person standard there, reasonable cost, which I'm not a huge fan of, but I actually think in this situation is a very applicable use of it, because there's really no other way to get around that. Representative Gosofsky.
And one other comment, the facility can still function. It's not like they're commandeering it, shutting it down, taking over it for the day. So wherever they happen to meet,
If it's a safety facility, the police and fire can still function at a school. The school can still hold school. So it's not a commandeering type of situation. It's a cooperative working together. Was my intent.
I love your representative. It is commandeering, but it's I think it's in my opinion, it's an acceptable commandeering. But I will have to agree to disagree on that. It's a total commandeering. Representative C.
Just a comment. In my town, the local elementary school where we hold town meeting is not owned by the town. It's owned by the school district. So they do cooperate, but if they decided not to cooperate, then there would be a problem.
Further, Representative Lane.
That's exactly the situation that I think I was addressing, Representative C, is that this bill may not solve the problem that you wanted if people did not want to be cooperative. So in my mind, the way to do that would be to amend it so that the school district basically has to do it. And I'm also, part of my district is a high school. It's 5 towns. So I'm not sure that Concord could go in there and say we want to use, Merrimack Valley High School as a voting place. So I don't know. I understand the problem and I sympathize with it and I'd like to solve it. I'm just not sure it's written that it does that.
Oh, I see what you're saying, because it's any town or city-owned facility within the ward. I see what you're saying, Representative. Yeah, I think if that is the case, you would need an amendment. Because that is the point, Representative Gosofsky, is you want to be able to use the schools, right? I think Representative, you guys can write this down. I think Representative Lane's right.
Wait.
Yeah, because it says. Well, actually, well, I think it's actually a 50-50 because it does end with or school district property. So at a minimum, it's not well constructed. How about that? You get it. Well, the last clause before the end, or school district property. I definitely think it needs to be cleaned up. It's not an early bill, so why don't we just clean it up and bring it back in 2 weeks? Because we're not going to meet next week because of school vacation, right?
Well, it's in 2 weeks.
Oh, it's in 2 weeks, so we'll meet next week and do it. But yeah, that's right. You can tell where my head's at. Yeah, just so we want to tighten it up.
March.
We'll tighten it up. All right, we're going to tighten it up. So we'll recess that and come back. Representative Gosofsky, can you please prepare an amendment with OLS just to clarify so there's no ambiguity? And then maybe we can even get a consent calendar. Who knows? We'll find out. We're going to recess it. We're back. Let's get back to our hearings. So we'll recess executive session. Let's open the public hearing for House Bill 1391, establishing a commission to study the implementation of a single ballot primary election. Representative Coker texted me. He's in executive session. So it is a Republican-sponsored bill. So if Representative Gosofsky, are you going to introduce it? I apologize. I am sorry. Representative Colby?
Yes.
Okay.
No need to apologize.
Oh, you're the prime sponsor. I'm sorry. I was looking at
okay.
1330. I'm so sorry. Which he's also a sponsor on, just so we're clear. I misread it. My apologies, Representative Colby. Welcome to Election Law.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Berry and honorable members of the committee. I am Representative Elena Colby. I represent the towns of Hopkinton and Bow. In recent years, there's been some growing discussion about New Hampshire adopting a single ballot primary. I've frequently received questions from constituents about the feasibility of implementing single ballot primaries in our state. It is evident that many people in New Hampshire are interested in exploring alternative voting systems. As elected officials, we have a unique opportunity to address their inquiries without committing to adopting a brand new system at this time. Establishing a study commission would allow us to thoroughly investigate the single ballot system and provide the answers needed to respond effectively to the public's questions. HB 1391 would simply direct the Commission to research a single ballot primary, evaluate the potential for implementation in New Hampshire, and deliver recommendations. The Commission would engage in collaborative discussions to deepen its understanding of the positions of municipal experts, legislators, the Secretary of State's office, and election officials. With over 40% of New Hampshire's voters registered as undeclared, we should explore ways to streamline our election process, increase efficiency at the polls, and reduce the overall costs for the state and our municipalities. Whether or not a single ballot primary could deliver these results for New Hampshire is a question that's well worth answering, and one we can only answer by bringing in all the stakeholders to the table. I urge the committee to vote ought to pass on HB 1391 to show our constituents that we are listening and actively pursuing answers to their questions. Thank you. And I will do my best to answer questions. However, I am not feeling very well today, so.
Oh, I mean, last week. Are there questions from the committee? Representative Gilmore.
Well, I'm sort of ignorant here. What is the single ballot primary?
There are people who could go in more depth and more detail, but instead of having a Republican ballot and a Democrat ballot, you would have one ballot.
And
You gonna follow up?
yes, please.
Absolutely.
And on that one ballot, would you be able to vote for anybody on any party?
That is my understanding of a single ballot primary. And again, I have a very limited understanding, and I think a lot of us do. A lot of us have the same questions as you, Representative Gilmore. And that is where a study commission would really help, I think, everybody out.
Thank you.
Further questions from the committee? Representative Muirhead.
Thank you. Thank you. Question. So, with a single ballot primary, would that say allow one of my constituents who's frustrated with me to vote for, say, a Republican who's running against me in the state rep race, but vote for a Democrat who's running for say, state senator or sheriff?
That is my understanding, yes. Thank you.
No one would ever be frustrated with you, Representative Muirhead. Why would they want to do that? Representative Lane.
This is you may not be able to answer this, but I know there's been some resistance to establishing commissions. And do you know what the difference, because I don't, the difference between a study commission and a study committee is?
I do not. That is a fantastic question.
So
I'm new here.
I'm not, but I still don't know. So maybe, yeah, I guess my question was, if we changed it to that, would that be acceptable?
I don't know.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions? Representative Gilmore.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just looking at this, and a whole lot of people, I mean, shouldn't there be a fiscal note attached to this?
I don't think there's a cost associated with the commission. All of these would be volunteers. I'm assuming that there might be a slight cost in the legislative members of the commission receiving mileage at the legislative rate when they're attending to their duties of the committee or the commission. Just noticing now, Representative Lane, that I have used terms interchangeably, so I might need to clean those up for you. But yes, in line 21 and 22, there is a reference to legislators being reimbursed. So there might be a little cost there, unless everyone's coming from Pittsburgh.
Sorry, it's less than 10 grand, so they don't, somehow 10 grand doesn't matter in Concord. Matters to me. So, we give it dirty look, you know, it's true. We've been around long enough. They don't put fiscal notes on things less than 10 grand. Further questions? Representative Wilhelm.
Chairman, can I go just do an overview of the difference between committee and commission just for our committee's understanding?
Absolutely. Just don't testify to the bill. You'll be fine.
Great. So a study committee is just members of the legislature. And then a study commission includes members of the public appointed by different agencies or organizations. I chaired a study commission in my first term, and there was just nominal cost. It was under $10,000. And it was really on each of those organizations to say, yes, we want to appoint somebody, and they will, do that in their professional capacity. But with the study committee, right, if we feel like, hey, this is a little bit unwieldy, or we're worried about, including some people and excluding others, we can just ensure that the list of organizations that's included here are invited to come and testify in front of the committee. So the same content can be absorbed by those who are going to make recommendations to future legislatures.
Further questions from the committee? Seeing none, next up is Eric Herr from Hill, New Hampshire.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity to testify today before you and the committee members in support of HB 1391 with a single caveat. Because elections are the linchpin between New Hampshire citizens and government, public confidence in the integrity and fairness of our elections is critical to our faith and trust in our public institutions. Among the tests New Hampshire's elections must pass is that their results fully reflect the will of the voters. Regrettably, New Hampshire's partisan two-ballot primary process fails that test. Every vote cast is not counted in the total vote tallies of the candidates. To illustrate, a write-in vote cast on a Democratic primary ballot for a candidate on the Republican primary ballot is not included in that Republican candidate's vote total. This is a serious flaw that became apparent to me when I first supervised the vote counting process in the town of Hill as moderator. The observation was reinforced during my work with New Hampshire Together, and since then, speaking to groups large and small around the state on this matter, I found that people were frankly, to a person, shocked and appalled by this failure. This feature of the state's current primary election process also has important practical effects. Because the candidate preferences of voters who split their votes across party lines are not fully reflected in candidates' reported vote totals, the largest group of registered voters, independent voters, is effectively being disenfranchised. Their rights are not equally protected. The Republican and Democratic parties also suffer, but a different practical effect from this failure. A party-aligned candidate with the most votes on that party's primary will win the party's primary, even when another party-aligned candidate receives more votes when the votes cast on both primary ballots are summed. Under these circumstances, the party would not be fielding its strongest vote-getting candidate. In light of these and similar concerns, a thorough, impartial examination of today's process and possible remedies, including a single ballot primary, their costs and effects, the experience of single ballot primaries in other states, both blue and red states, and public attitudes about these issues call for the creation of a study commission proposed by House Bill 1391 with one caveat. The proposed list of appointees to the commission is skewed toward party-aligned legislative members. Their participation will be critical. But this is first and foremost about the will of the people. The people deserve a strong, direct voice in this undertaking. The majority report of the Election Law Committee on last session's single ballot primary proposal triggers my concern. It reads, and I quote, "A single ballot primary process undermines true democratic choice by reducing competition, distorting representation, and weakening political parties." End of quote. Such points, of course, merit examination, but can preserving the power of the parties ever justify a primary election process that excludes votes, that distorts the will of the people? In addition, I would add, in my experience chairing commissions, 3 commissions for the state of New Hampshire, one on technology strategy, one on efficiency and innovation in the judicial branch, and one on efficiency and innovation in the executive branch. The value of adding multiple perspectives and experiences to the exercise of those commissions and their results was always very, very powerful. But the changes to longstanding election processes should be done with great care and participation that reflects the diversity of these points of view. To that end, I support House Bill 1391 amended to include more direct participation by the people. Thank you. Now I'll be happy to take your questions.
Other questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you. Representative Coker, are you speaking to this bill? You're a co-sponsor. 1391? No. Okay. Last up is Angela Brennan with One Peoples / New Hampshire Together Forum, and Representative Gilmore, if you could grab the blue sheet for me, since Representative Bay has stepped out.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. It's so good to see you. My name is Angela Brennan. I'm a former state legislator who served on this committee. I'm also a municipal official serving on my select board as chair and vice chair. I am the president of AV Strategies, and today I'm here on behalf of my client, One People, and also the New Hampshire Together Forum. This bill, HB 1391, establishes a commission. Does not change our election systems. It's important to recognize that because we have seen that the state legislature has at times created sweeping changes to our election systems without the input of local election officials and other stakeholders, creating difficulties for those who run our elections. This is a study commission, and I'd like to point your attention to the members of this study commission as proposed in this bill. There are 2 members of the House of Representatives, 1 Republican, 1 Democrat, appointed by the Speaker of the House. 2 members of the Senate, 1 Republican, 1 Democrat, appointed by the President of the Senate. The Secretary of State, or their designee. 1 member of a nonpartisan civics education organization, appointed by the Governor. 1 member of New Hampshire Town and City Clerks Association, appointed by the President of that organization. 1 member of the New Hampshire Municipal Association, appointed by the Executive Director. 1 member who is a local election official, such as town moderator, city clerk, or town clerk, appointed by the Governor. It's important to recognize that this commission includes stakeholders who run our elections. I understand that there is a resistance to study commissions. We know that. I know there are members who say, absolutely not, we will not do a study commission. But I think this presents a unique opportunity to learn. And by the way, this committee and other legislators won't have to do all the work, as you would see in a study committee. For that reason, I think a study commission is very important. It's important to answer to the people, as we've heard in previous testimony. I represent New Hampshire Together Forum, which is a deliberative democracy process that brings together representatives from all across the state, representing the demographics of the state and the geography of the state, who come together and they identify problems, learn from experts about possible solutions, and then vote on those solutions. A single ballot primary was supported by over 80% of the participants in the 2024 New Hampshire Together Forum. These are Republicans, Democrats, undeclared voters, people who aren't interested in civic participation, but they showed up in a safe, welcoming environment to discuss issues facing New Hampshire and learn about solutions, and then choose which solution they think is worth exploring further. This study commission offers the opportunity to explore a solution further that might reduce the division and divisiveness in our politics. It could potentially serve voters who, we have seen, any of us who have served on elections, served our communities in elections, and we've seen ballots where voters are zigzagging back and forth on a general election ballot, right? Some people are voting for Republicans and Democrats on a general election ballot. Well, let's give primary voters the opportunity to choose who is the best candidate for the job. A single ballot primary, as study commission members may find, offers that opportunity to tone down the rhetoric, focus on what really might serve the community best, and eliminate some of the chaos and divisiveness that we see in our politics today. And so I would encourage the committee to support the study commission to allow us to learn, whether it's legislators, other stakeholders who run our elections. Let's give it a chance. Let's find out if we can serve the people in a better way, in a simpler way, in a way that brings us more together instead of tearing us apart. And I'd be happy to take any questions.
Questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you. I did have a pink card that I missed. My apologies. Werner Horn from
Thank
One
you.
People.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the House Election Law Committee. For the record, my name is Werner Horn. I'm representing One People, Inc., and I'm speaking in support of House Bill 1391. The value of a commission versus a committee is really the question that I'm here to support. Committees, by their nature, are very short-lived. The scope of the commission would extend through the election cycle, which would give the work of the commission an adequate amount of time to reach out and grab information from more available sources. When we have a commission, we have a diversity of perspectives that's usually not possible inside of a committee. Let's face it, as legislators, we all have a very similar background. We all believe in the virtue of public service. We all believe in our election process. And that raises the potential to overlook aspects that would be available from the perspective of the Secretary of State's office, or aspects that would be available from other stakeholders in the room. The idea that people would be members of the committee from these diverse perspectives allows them the freedom to call upon their individual networks to come and testify. It gives us a broader access to information than we might enjoy as just legislators being in the room. The idea of communicating the ideas that come up in the study commission becomes an easier process, because not only do we have access to the networks of these organizations for the purposes of gathering information, but we would also have access to the networks of these organizations for dissemination. It would not fall upon the committee members alone to further the work that's being developed in a study committee. It would be these organizations being able to use their reach to inform the voters of what the study commission has learned. That is the biggest argument from my perspective on why we would ask for the study commission. With 5 members of the board being 5 members of the commission being appointed by their organizations and 4 legislators, what we would have is continuity through the election cycle. So there would not be a sense of urgency for the Speaker of the House to assign new members to replace the members on the commission. There would still be 5 people on that commission able to do the work in time. The members of the legislature who are newly elected could join them, or if a different party takes the speakership, they would appoint in their perspective the appropriate members. So with that being said, I am a huge fan of answering these questions. The legislature has participated in a number of notable commissions. So while we might paint with a broad brush that commissions don't work, we don't want commissions, we don't like commissions, the role of the committees is to do the work. We've got a history in New Hampshire of establishing commissions when the scope of the conversation is larger than can be convened between when the bill is signed and when the next session of the House begins. And with that, I'm happy to answer questions.
Other questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you. I don't have any other pink cards. Sorry about missing yours, Mr. Horn. On the blue sheet was one person who signed in who did not speak in support. Online for 1391 was 73 in support, 6 opposed, 0 neutral. The public hearing, what time is it? It's 10:10. 11:10, sorry. The public hearing for House Bill 1391 is closed. I am going to open an executive session for 1391. We're not going to be taking a vote. Just want to discuss it really quickly. So I offered to the sponsor, to the stakeholders of this bill, because for various reasons, we're not big on commissions or commissions, not only in this committee, but just the disposition of the House in general, because we end up, despite what was said during the testimonies, in my opinion, the House members end up doing most of the work anyways. But I didn't want to just be closed off on it. So I offered the stakeholders of this, I'm not saying they agreed to this, I'm just saying I offered it and I've fallen through on my offer. If this committee would like to form a subcommittee on this and study it, I'm happy to form it. I will not be on it because I'm barely keeping up with my chair's duties right now. But it would have to be, there'd have to be at least 5 members who'd be interested in moving it forward. So if 5 of you guys get together and want to form a subcommittee, I'm happy to form that, and you can do everything that's in this bill. You can bring in everybody who's in that bill except for the members of the other body who probably wouldn't show up anyways, let's be honest. But that offer is on the table. So when we come back later today, or not later today, but maybe next week, be thinking about that, and I'm happy to do that. So with that statement said, we will now close the executive session on that. I want to make that statement under executive session. We will now move to the public hearing on House Bill 1388 relative to the form of ballot for amendments to the Constitution, and recognize Representative Coker, who is here, despite my best efforts, for the purpose of introduction. 1330, what did I say? I said 1330, allowing registered voters to vote in state and presidential primaries regardless of declared party affiliation. And he has a pink card. And yes, we did just offer to study that 5 minutes ago.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know you're excited about this. So for the record, my name is Matt Coker, Belknap 2nd District. So basically, this bill is very, very simple. It allows somebody to vote in whatever primary they want, regardless of whatever party they want. Why do I want to do this? Again, I think the primaries are, in most districts, the primaries are the only competitive election. So if you live in Ware, we'll just use that as an example. People are like, where? Anyways, so you live in Ware. If you're a Democrat, you have absolutely no say over who governs you. Like, yes, you go in there, you can kind of vote, which is what it is, but it's not a real vote. You're getting no literal say. So that's not fair. And if you live in Portsmouth and you're a Republican, you have no literal say. It's all just on paper. It's all just it's a show. It is a show, and it's making us become a banana republic. And I came in here for the single ballot primary. I know which way that's going. I'm coming in here for this because I think we are facing an existential threat as a nation. And I will throw every dart I possibly can at the wall to try to move this because I don't want to go down fighting and or without fighting. So again, that's it. I'm happy to take all the questions. Have at me. This is fun. I'm excited. So thank you.
All right, my first question is, would you believe that the part of Ware that I live in is North Ware, which is called Nowhere?
I would.
Representative Plant.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Representative, for taking my question. I just had a generic question here. If one wanted to vote in another party's primary, couldn't one just switch political parties?
One could, but that's also a process. So the way that it works now is like if you're undeclared, you can basically just go in and out of a party. And really, this gets down to what is a political party? I mean, somebody asked me that the other day. I was doing an interview with somebody, and they said, "What is a political party?" I was like, "I don't know." I mean, it's kind of a group of people who kind of think in a certain way, but there's no loyalty test. There's no loyalty test. You can, one morning at 7:58 in the morning, I was a Democrat. At 8:01, after my clerk opened, I was a Republican. What is a party? So again, this is just a process thing. We already kind of have a process in place where you're an undeclared voter and you can go back and forth. But like that's an extra step. People forget to undeclare. So like some people they're undeclared and then they go in and they vote in the Democratic primary and then now they're on a voting or a mailing list for the Democrats and they don't like that and vice versa. So this cleans it up. Let's just let people vote. That's as simple as it is.
All right. Next question. All right. Seeing none.
Awesome.
I don't think I have any other pink cards for this. Just wait. Anyone want to keep beating up Representative Coker? I thought it was funny. All right. Cool. Representative Gilmore. Yeah. Representative Gilmore, can you grab the blue sheet for House Bill 1330 for me? And then online was 9 in support, 8 opposed, 0 neutral. Call that a barn burner. And the blue sheet is, of course, empty. So we will close the public hearing on House Bill 1330. And we can exec a little bit. Yeah. We'll start off with the fun one. Open the executive session for House Bill 1600 requiring the Division of Motor Vehicles to make available the opportunity to register to vote at the time of application for or renewal of a driver's license or non-driver's license identification card. I will make the motion of ought to pass. Representative Lane seconds the motion. Representative Lane, do you have an amendment you wish to submit?
Yes, I do, and it's going around the table. I just took you, put you on.
Okay, thanks. Well,
It's
that's
going
one
around.
for the, yeah, that's one for that and one for me.
Sound like a plan.
There you go.
So, may I address it? Mr. Chair, may I address it while it's going around?
Yes, absolutely.
So after we had the work session, which was great, we came together and we read the MOU, and that's existing between the DMV and the SOS, and realized that there were some provisions in there that basically it could be terminated within 60 days by either party. It could be terminated immediately if both parties agree. Most of the language, a lot of the language was discretionary, and there were provisions in there that said if it wasn't funded, that neither party had to abide by it. So it was truly a memorandum of understanding in that neither party could legally obligate the other party to participate. So we looked at it and decided now that we have the MOU, could we have the MOU be mandatory? In other words, so and that it needs to be put in place so that it cannot be canceled and it needs to go forward. So we got rid of all the language in the bill that talked about registering at DMV. So that is not in here anymore. And what we have is we went back and we looked at 654.12.6, which we passed last year and which just went into effect this year. And it talks about having, I'm sorry, I lose my train of thought, but we amended it so that it had a lot of the language in there that we wanted, so we didn't have to go back and make everything mandatory. So we amended in that first paragraph on lines 13, we said that it shall ensure that each polling place in the state has direct electronic access to the statewide centralized voter registration database at each state, local, and federal election during the operating hours of that polling place. And that was put in there because it was felt that right now there are not so many, but there are some that do not have Wi-Fi. And we want to be able to have them have access to that. And there are monies that are available that would be an upgrade, a technological upgrade that would probably be available for HAVA funds to be used for. So that would make the town, it says the town has to work with the Secretary of State, but it has to have Wi-Fi access, because the backup plan was to have somebody, I don't know if you remember during testimony, was to call, the Secretary of State at AG's office, and if the phone service was bad or somebody couldn't get through, or, you were calling at 10 minutes of 7 and nobody, you didn't have enough time. So the idea was to make sure that there's access at the polling place to the database so that it can be used, because otherwise you're not going to be able to use it directly. So that was the first change, and that was, I think, requested. I think that was a mutual request. And then, so in a couple different places, there is another statute that's really long, and I apologize. It's 654-45, and it's the statute that deals with the database and says what has to be in it, and sets up it says it authorizes the Secretary of State and DMV to make an agreement, but it doesn't mandate it. So everything in there was discretionary. So we wanted to make it so they had to have this exchange of information, so that it couldn't be canceled down the road. So most of the changes that are on pages 2, 3, 4 are going through and making so that it's not discretionary anymore. Instead of saying may, it says shall. So that's what it was, and that's what we wanted to accomplish. So rather than write a whole new section of the statute to kind of go through what is in the MOU, we looked at this, and I kind of realized over the weekend that we could just tweak this and not have to go into a whole new section. So, and then the other change that we wanted to make sure that was in there was the information that's in the database can be used to satisfy any of those 4 criterion. So, domicile, age, identity, and citizenship. And so it can be used for that, and to make that clear. And that actually was already in our statutes. It was already in the first one. It's on page 1, and it's lines 16, 17, 18 in there. So the 2 changes that we kind of wanted, one was in the statute already, the other ones we tweaked. So that's the overall. Unfortunately, one of the sections that we wanted to put in, that I asked to be put in, did not get put in. And so I don't know, and it has to do with it's very technical. It's just having the Department of Motor Vehicle says that they have to provide that information, and that they can do it under a certain statute that governs them, because they have a lot of regulatory and statutes that govern how they can let information out. And it was just making it clear that it was okay to do that. It's probably belt and suspenders. We can put it in or not, but we have to get the spill out today. So that's why I'm kind of pushing. And the effective date, I wasn't sure. We had a couple different effective dates. So I just put in 60 days after passage. If we...
Sorry,
Oh, okay. The options were to pick a date. If we want it to be for this election, if we want this to stay in place for this election, so that if people can come in and find out under DMV if their citizenship is there, then we would have to make it effective before this election, the 26th election. Normally with a lot of these changes, we wait until after the next election, but I think given the citizenship and what we're doing, it's not, and the information is already there. It's not something that they have to change. It's already coming in. It's already in the database. The question is, can they use the database for the election? So I think that covers the amendment.
Questions about the amendment? I second the amendment in case we didn't do that. So.
And I apologize because I put it in, but it was a little convoluted, so it took them a while to get it. So I just got it like 5-10 minutes ago. So.
Representative Wilhelm.
Thank you, Chairman. I just want to appreciate the work of the member from Concord for getting this amendment together. And I have a question for her. Do you think that the Wi-Fi upgrades, the opportunity to do that through HAVA funds, will be helpful when commandeering certain buildings to say, hey, we're here to help you out. We're giving you a Wi-Fi upgrade, but we're going to use your facility.
I don't know, because I know in a lot of the high schools there are a lot of restrictions on the Wi-Fi, so sometimes you're not able to actually, there's only certain websites and stuff that you can get into, so as long as it's not blocked, we should be fine.
We'll get everybody a Starlink account. There won't be any controversy there. Representative C.
Just as a comment, it doesn't necessarily have to be Wi-Fi, which is radiated around the room. It can be just a wired connection, internet connection.
Yeah.
I don't
You don't need that.
I don't see the term Wi-Fi actually in this.
I think I just said access to the centralized.
That's correct. You just said access.
Internet
It's
access.
a very long,
Yeah.
very long name.
Probably my only concern, and I love the fact that at least it sounds like we're in the disposition of codifying the MOU because I think that that's important. And I agree with Representative Lane, like the idea that either party could pull out with 60 days notice is kind of disconcerting and kind of undermines, I think, the will of the body would be my statement on that. My only concern is the is this if it doesn't have money attached to it, is it an unfunded mandate to the polling locations?
Yeah, I thought about that. I don't know.
That is my only concern, especially because of all the acrimony around unfunded mandates, and I'll leave that there. If we do take this, if we do get another amendment, probably the only thing that I would add right off the bat would be on the last page, on page 4, line 29, make it the majority and minority leaders, because the speaker is not always elected by the majority party. So it's important to have that distinction. It's okay. It's not the end of the world. It's definitely not out of all the concerns I'd have, that is like so far down on the list. It's negligible. Representative C.
Are we able to make a further amendment because she just said that this bill is due out today?
Yep, it's due out today. I doubt we would get another amendment on it. So we might be able to. We would have options because we're getting towards the end of our day, but we would have options. So procedurally, I guess answering your procedural question, procedurally we can pass the bill out OTP, we can pass it out OTPA, and a floor amendment can be brought down on it. And usually floor amendments are done together in a bipartisan fashion. They fly through no problem. That's option number one. Usually. Option number two is we try to make changes that we want right now, and we file off with OLS immediately and hope it gets to us by the time we exec. I don't want to be hanging around here up till 3 o'clock waiting for an amendment to come through, just bluntly, and I don't think our subs do either. So if you were to make me pick right now, it would be, let's discuss our differences right now, and we can pass the amendment and then amend the amendment on the floor, which is my favorite thing to do. But you can't, to answer your underlying question, is you can't in real time amend an amendment, as Representative Sweeney and I learned in one of our very first outings on election law. Yes, I'm aware of how the House handicaps itself in the legislative process, and then we wonder why we lose. Legislative battles. Representative Wilhelm.
Thanks, Chairman. So I'm not comfortable passing the bill OTP, right? But I am comfortable passing it with this amendment, and I think there are enough of us here who are committed to working on a floor amendment to get it ready for passage.
Well, let's just get the red herring out, because the red herring is the mandate on the access at the polling location. So that's my guess is that would be the biggest sticking point, right? Like, are there any other major sticking points that anyone want to chime in? Are there any other than the access at the location mandated? Is there any other sticking point? Effective date.
Just to make sure that there's no sticking point.
I think 60 days. I think 60 days is like super appropriate because you've got the March. The only elections you've got coming up are March.
Right.
That's already covered under the current MOU. They can't pull out in time.
I know.
Right. And 60 days, even if this gets signed in June, that's still going to be in place before September. Right?
Correct.
Math?
If it's signed in June, in the past, sometimes.
Yeah, I see where you're going.
So I would prefer a set date before the election.
Do you just want to do it on passage? Well, you can't do on passage goes in March.
I would say, well, I was going to say like July 30th or
Okay.
something like that.
Okay. So are we good with that, July 30th for an effective date on the floor? So at a minimum, we're going to do that on the floor amendment. Is everybody good with that? Any objections to July 30th? Representative C.
My only concern on that is how fast the other body would work and then how long it would take before the governor got around to it.
Yeah. Well, we can't. No one knows the mysteries of the other wall. Lord knows I don't.
They would change the effective date if it drags out like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so that would be on the floor amendment as well.
Yeah. But remember, I mean, this MOU is in place right now, right? So
right.
This is probably it's an important conversation to have, but it is likely much ado about nothing. Would be my guess. Representative Wilhelm.
Well, I'm going to make it ado about something. I would just say upon passage, I think that moves it along. There are a few different places where this can get caught up, right? It can also be held in the Secretary of State's office for a while before it goes to the governor's desk.
That would never happen.
Right. Not that there hasn't been legislation in the past to try and improve that process and bring more transparency.
That would never
But
happen.
that's not the topic of this bill.
That would never happen. I don't know what you're talking about. All right, so let's go back. So effective date, we're going to do upon passage. Is that the consent? Any objection to upon passage? Okay. So well, let's do Are you taking notes, Representative Lane? So on passage, toss the majority leader in on page 4, and now let's do unfunded mandate. Where are we on that? Does a member have an objection to that unfunded mandate? Any member have an objection to it? Speak now or forever hold your peace. Representative Quayle.
Objection to the unfunded mandate?
Yes.
Well, I think unfunded mandates are in general a bad idea. So yes, I do have an objection to it.
So you would want that out?
I would want it out, and I see 3 places.
Okay, Representative C.
Do we have any indication that there are any towns left in New Hampshire that don't have access to the internet?
I would be stunned if there wasn't. I would be stunned if there wasn't. Yeah, I don't think it's a small. I love the idea of having it at the polling location. I genuinely love that idea. I just don't know if that's, especially if we're doing effective upon passage. I don't know if that's I don't even know if it's feasible.
Yeah.
I don't know if we could, even if we wanted to.
Yeah. The other thought I had was on page 1, lines 12 and 13, we could just have the Secretary of State shall ensure that each polling place, therefore, that way it's not an unfunded mandate. It's on the onus of the Secretary of State. And like I said, I would think that these would be HAVA funds. I'm not sure the Secretary of State would be very happy about that. But
I can assure you he would not. My issue is when you do that sort of stuff, I always compare in my brain, Dixville, Notch, and Derry, right? The largest location and the smallest location. So you do that, you're now mandating that the system be stood up in Dixville, Notch. Right? Standing up in Derry, that's not an issue. That's probably already running. I don't have a problem with it being mandated at the clerk level at all, because I'm not aware of a single town clerk that doesn't have access to the internet. That I feel comfortable saying. So I have no problem with it being at the town office at all, because it's probably already there. But at the polling location may be too big of a pill to swallow. So I guess if that's the worldview, are we of a gentle person's agreement that we could bring forward a floor amendment that would get rid of the at the polling locations with the other 2 changes and leave everything else?
Everybody okay?
You're watching legislation in real time. This is nice. Representative Wilhelm?
I would feel comfortable empowering the chair and the ranking member to come up with that floor amendment. That makes those changes. And here's the thing. I mean, we're looking at this for the first time right now. If there are a couple other things that need to be tweaked, I mean, ultimately it's going to be approved by the full chamber, right?
Correct.
So,
yeah, that is true. Representative Bailey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm looking at lines 22 and 23. Secretary of State shall plan, develop, equip, establish, cite, and maintain a statewide centralized voter registration database and communication system How much is that likely to cost? That does not sound like it would be free.
He's already done it.
He's already done it?
It's going from is authorized to shall because he's already done it.
Okay, good. Okay.
Yeah, it exists.
Fine.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was already done, and we just want to make sure it stays in place.
That answers my question.
Yes.
Thank you.
Representative Weary.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So small towns might not need this, right? Ostensibly because they might know the personnel there. Is it possible to have some sort of caveat that as needed at the discretion of the local community or
They already the town's already there's not a town clerk that doesn't have access to the internet. They have to do that for DMV and everything else already, because this all this is a web portal effectively. The polling locations is what's different because now you're bringing internet to a place that doesn't already have it. There is not a town clerk that does not have access to the internet. They would be incapable of doing their job, even in Dixon Notch.
So right now, it's a discretionary that they would provide it on election day, and we were making it shall. So we might just be able to revert. I'll look, but we might just be able to revert back to the original language.
Yeah, because it's
just leave out. I'll look at that, but I think we may just be able to revert to the original language. I think Rep. Quayle indicated there are 3 places, and we just go back to that language that's in the statute now. And right now I know they're working with a phone, and I think there was a story that somebody had a laptop. It wasn't authorized though. That's the problem. It's not secure, but they had a laptop that they could use because they had a hotspot.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Okay, so but that was not a secure device evidently. So I don't know.
Okay, so but
I'm not going down this hole because I don't know a whole
Right,
lot.
but I think we have a game plan just to make sure we're all on the same page. So Representative Lane, Muirhead, Quayle, and myself will work together on a floor amendment that removes the mandate at the polling location, correct?
Yep.
Makes those other changes on effective date and adds majority leader and any other non-material change that we find that we have to do. Is everybody okay with that? Okay, so we're still on discussion. We're gonna go back to actually executing. That was a nice little legislative process there. We're on the motion of ought to pass as amended. We're on the amendment. Our rules allow us to take up amendments on a voice vote. Is there any objection to the bill being voted, the amendment being voted on by a voice vote? Hearing none. All in favor of adopting Amendment 2026-0626H to House Bill 1600 say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. The ayes have it. We're now, I recognize, I will move House Bill 1600 be ought to pass as amended with Amendment 2026-0626H. Representative Lane seconds my motion. We're now in discussion on the motion of ought to pass as amended on House Bill 1600 with Amendment 2026-0626H. Is there any discussion on the motion of ought to pass as amended? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll on the motion of ought to pass as amended on House Bill 1600 with Amendment 2026-0626H. Oh, we're voting now. I'm sorry.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Ready?
Yep.
Okay. Vice Chairman Quayle.
Yes.
Representative Prudhoe O'Brien. Yes. Clerk says yes. Representative Weary.
Yes.
Representative Wood.
Yes.
Representative C.
Yes.
Representative Kozowski.
Yes.
Representative Plant.
Yes.
Representative Lane.
Yes.
Representative Ward.
Yes.
Representative Gilmore.
Yes.
Representative Muirhead.
Yes.
Representative Wilhelm.
Yes.
Representative Newsom.
Yes.
Chairman Barry.
Chair votes yes. The motion carries on. Was that 17? Representative Sweeney would like to vote.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
How are you voting, Representative Sweeney?
Oh, yes.
Oh, thank you. So nice of you.
Can we see some documentation?
How dare you?
Okay, so the vote is.
We're getting the count. I think it's 17.
16.
16 to 0. Okay. I will be responsible for the majority report in which I will write the reflection of the will for the floor amendment. We're going to close the executive session for House Bill 1600. Let's go back to our regular business here. No, it cannot go on consent. No, it's got an FN and we're floor amending it, so it is definitely not going on consent. Yep. Okay, we're going to open the public hearing for House Bill 1388 relative to the form of ballot for amendments to the Constitution and recognize Representative Weary for the purpose of introduction. And just so everybody knows, I am going to get us, we're not going to break for lunch, I'm going to get us out of here before lunch. So we've got one more hearing. The rest of the execs, I hope we're going to go quickly. That was the only one that we had to really parse through. So I imagine we're out of here. My guess is around 12:30 just for situational awareness.
All set? All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair and honorable committee members. For the record, my name is Robert Wary. I have the privilege of representing the town of Hudson, Hillsborough District 13. The purpose of this bill is just to make questions on constitutional amendments more clear. There have been several circumstances in New Hampshire's history where there have been some confusion around the questions. For example, there was, believe it or not, in 1976, there was a question on domicile. There were 5 questions posted, but there was only one yes or no choice. And then there was another problem in 1966, I believe, commingling multiple issues with one yes or no box. That was actually went to the courts in Gerber v. King. And more recently, some representatives have been bringing up constitutional amendment questions regarding 73A, where text was added actually to the constitutional amendment after the vote. And so there's a number of concerns that are out there about how constitutional amendment questions are presented to the voter, and therefore this is the purpose of this particular legislation proposed. Thank you for your time. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Other questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank
Awesome.
you. I don't think I have any other pink cards. So, Representative Weir, can you grab your own blue sheet?
Yes, I can.
And then we will go, let me read the counts here. My apologies. I've managed to get us back on time. Some say. Some say. Flattery will get you everywhere, Representative Muirhead. Online support is 3, opposed is 3. The blue sheet is blank. The public hearing for House Bill 1388 is closed. We are opening the public hearing for House Bill 1277 relative to the proof of identification on absentee ballot applications, and I recognize Representative Muirhead for the purpose of introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to assuage any anxiety being felt by the committee chair by noting that my pink slip will be provided forthwith.
I'm sure the voters would love to give you a pink slip, but I will take your pink card.
Ooh. I guess I walked into that one.
You know, and after the discussion about like who would want a single ballot primary to get rid of Representative Muirhead, and just make up your mind.
So this bill, HB 1277, would give voters in New Hampshire who need to vote absentee the opportunity to prove their identity by writing down their driver license number on the absentee ballot application, or their non-driver ID as provided by the Department of Motor Vehicles, the non-driver ID number. At present, we require those who want to vote absentee to provide an image of their ID along with their applicant, or we give them the opportunity to notarize their signature. This would simplify the process. There are any number of absentee voters who may find themselves, like I often find myself, struggling to get their printers to work, occasionally descending into violence against these machines as they try to rip the toner cartridge out of the recalcitrant machine and replace it with something new and better. There are also many voters who have difficulty operating devices that take photos of IDs. I am not referring to you, Mom and Dad, but I do know that might happen, that they would need to call me and we might need to spend several hours on the phone as I walk them through the process of taking a photograph of, say, their driver license, and then another several hours as I walk them through the process of either printing that photograph out or emailing it somewhere where it can't be printed out. So this bill would give voters a chance to escape all of that possible frustration by simply writing down the number of their driver license on the voter ID application and allowing the clerks to verify their identification by consulting with the Department of Motor Vehicles. There is at least one other state I'm aware of that does this and that does this successfully. So it's been tried before. And from my conversations, our own officials attest that this can be done efficiently and easily. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Questions from the committee? Representative Wilhelm.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative, thanks for taking my question. Would you believe that I, the son of a printer salesman, struggled to print out my testimony this morning for the two public hearings?
I do believe that. That is still amazing, but I do believe it.
Thank you.
Further questions from the committee? Representative C.
Is the secretary, the clerks allowed to verify with the DMV the license numbers and name? Is that part of the process on the e-books as well? Is that what the e-book looks at?
I can't speak
You're fine.
to who, do you, it's part of what's in the MOU. So the license number is coming over. So they should be able to get into it to find that.
Further questions? Seeing none, thank you. Next up is
Mr. Chair.
Oh, I apologize. Representative Primer Ryan, my apologies.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for taking my question on this bipartisan bill. I like to call it a Kumbaya bill. What is the other state? Do you know offhand?
Gosh, I actually spoke with the Secretary of State, but as I was saying, as those words were leaving my mouth, it occurred to me that I forgot the name. The name of the state has escaped my memory. So I gathered that information through direct conversation, but I can't remember what the state was. And I do also want to respond to your characteristic of the kumbaya. I think there is a way in which different political orientations and temperaments sometimes emphasize different kinds of values, and in a world where all of these values have genuine weight, and we find ourselves often in a situation where one party is very, very concerned about election integrity, election security, and another party is very, very concerned about making sure that citizens who want to vote have easy access to ballots, and those are both genuine values, and we try to balance them judiciously in our legislation. And this, I think, to the extent that this bill is a kumbaya bill, it's because it places a great deal of weight on both of those values and finds an occasion where those values actually don't conflict.
Representative Weary.
I'd like to thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for taking my question. In painting a worst case scenario where someone could obtain a license number of someone who was otherwise incapacitated or not able to vote in a given election. What security and safeguards or methods would you recommend to prevent that kind of misuse of a license number?
I am not certain that I have good recommendations at the moment. I'm also not certain, though, that I have a good recommendation for a scenario where somebody could capture an image of somebody's license and also use that to conduct voter impersonation, voter fraud, to impersonate another voter by using the image of their ID. And I do think that it would be exceedingly difficult to get the driver license number of another person and impersonate them, as it would be exceedingly difficult, though not impossible, to get the image of another person's license or passport and impersonate the person that way. So I think there's a corner case where a certain kind of voter impersonation, voter fraud might occur. There are, I think, very many great risks to that kind of activity, not least criminal prosecution. But also, I think the very real probability that somebody who's trying to undertake voter fraud by impersonating another voter would be caught when that other voter presents themselves at the polls or otherwise tries to vote legitimately.
Further questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you. Next up is Kristen Evans from Able, New Hampshire.
Thank you, Chair, members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify in support of House Bill 1277. For the record, my name is Kristen Evans, and I serve as the Director of Policy for ABLE New Hampshire. And ABLE is a statewide disability justice organization, and we fight for the civil and human rights of adults and children with disabilities across the state. While this bill does not resolve our broader concerns about barriers in the absentee voting process, it does remove one particularly harmful and unnecessary obstacle for many voters with disabilities. For people with disabilities, accessing a notary can be difficult or impossible. It can require transportation, physical access to buildings, financial costs, scheduling assistance, or reliance on others. These are not minor inconveniences. They are real barriers that disproportionately affect people with mobility disabilities, chronic illness, cognitive disabilities, and those who rely on personal care attendants. Allowing voters to use an identification number instead of a notarized signature recognizes the reality of how people actually live and vote. It removes an additional step that has no demonstrated impact on election integrity while meaningfully improving access for voters who are already eligible and entitled to participate. That said, ABLE New Hampshire remains deeply concerned with the broader premise of making absentee ballot applications harder to access. Voting is a fundamental right, not a privilege, conditioned on navigating increasingly complex administrative hurdles. Each new requirement compounds existing inequities and pushes marginalized voters further from the ballot box. HB 1277 does not fix that problem, but it does make the current system less harmful than it is today. This bill represents a modest but important harm reduction measure. It acknowledges that rigid processes disproportionately exclude people with disabilities and takes a step towards a more accessible approach. For that reason, ABLE New Hampshire urges the committee to support HB 1277 while continuing to examine and address the broader barriers facing absentee voters in New Hampshire. Thank you for your time.
Questions from the committee? Will you be accepting them?
Yep.
Are there questions from the committee? Saying none, thank you. Last up is Sarah Ortiz and Representative Bay. If you could grab the blue sheet for me, please, and thank you. She did have, ABLE New Hampshire did have copies. I saw. I thought that's Open Democracy. I thought I saw. Did we have written testimony from ABLE printed?
I have extra copies here. I'll send them
Okay,
back.
we've got it. All right. Thank you, Ms. Ortiz.
Good morning. My name is Sarah Ortiz. I'm the Public Policy Fellow with Open Democracy.
Thank you for the opportunity to testify in support of House Bill 1277, and thank you for the sponsors for bringing forward this bipartisan common sense bill. As we heard earlier, this bill allows voters to write their driver's license number on absentee ballots instead of having ballot applications, instead of having to get paperwork notarized or submit copies of identification. This is a simple update that modernizes absentee voting while keeping elections secure. This bill also makes life easier for our local clerks who spend a lot of time reviewing paperwork and fixing avoidable errors, especially during busy elections, while also reducing the handling of sensitive documents, which improves the voters' privacy. Most importantly, HB 1277 removes unnecessary barriers like finding a notary, paying fees, or making trips, while maintaining strong election integrity and, as we heard earlier, the safety of our printers. HB 1277 is secure, modern, and fair, and I respectfully ask the committee to recommend it as ought to pass. Thank you.
Questions from the committee? Hearing none, thank you. The blue sheet was empty online. It was 280 in support, 9 opposed, 0 neutral. The public hearing for House Bill 1277 is closed. We are reopening executive session, and we will open the executive session for House Bill 1187, relative to the time in which candidates for state representative may file their candidates for a special election. And I will make the motion of ought to pass. Is there a second? Representative Quayle graciously seconds. We are now in discussion of the motion of ought to pass on House Bill 1187. I will speak to my motion. This very simply adds, I love it when things are very simple, because it means that they're usually not, but it adds that for a special election, the clerk's office for the areas affected have to be open at least 3 days in person, for at least 2 hours every one of those 3 days. And to solve the problem that we've seen recently in special elections of the clerk for the district being open for literally 1 day for filing, which I think is absurd. And then people have to drive to Concord to register in person at the Secretary of State. So I think 3 days at a minimum is a very low bar for in-person filing at their town clerk. And then, of course, they have the last day to file at the Secretary of State's office. Further discussion on the bill, on the motion of ought to pass. Representative Newsom.
One point that was brought up during testimony is that this bill changes a shall register to 2 different mays. So the argument could be made that there's no longer a requirement to file at all.
Oh, lovely. All right, we'll fix it. All right, it's recessed. I don't think was I here for that one? I don't remember. No, well, I haven't mentally been here in years. So.
You were in the chair. You were up there, Mike.
Nice. Really dialed in these days. Okay. Next up will be House Bill 1541, requiring the Secretary of State to provide all voting precincts with secure containers for storing ballots. Recognize Representative Weary for a motion. Representative Weary moves ought to pass. Is there a second? Representative Wood seconds. Representative Weary, do you have an amendment?
No.
Okay. Okay, would you like to speak to your motion of ought to pass?
Yes, sir. Having read there was one concern about the phase-in of these boxes going out to the different communities through the Secretary of State's office. And I did send in a question to the Secretary of State's office because there was some language in the bill that said, forgive me, I don't have it immediately in front of me, the speed at which the chair is working is stunning. And, but thank you. There is, there are parts in it that talk about measurable progress and one other term. I can't find it right at the moment, but it seems to me that it provides enough room for the Secretary of State to roll it out as a program and not be inundated with having to supply all the boxes at one time.
Further discussion on the motion of ought to pass on House Bill 1541. Excuse me. Yep.
There was also, when I asked the Secretary of State, he wanted to make it discretionary as to whether he would use HAVA. So the word shall on page 12,
Line 12. Said page 12 would be a long bill.
Would make it may. And if for those who were on the committee at the time, you may remember that we went through the shall may conundrum with Secretary of State about the voting machines and about the poll pads. And he wanted to maybe only, if he had the money available, he didn't want to dip into HAVA. So he just wanted to make sure that it was a may. So that was my only thought.
Further discussion.
And it's not an early bill.
Further discussion. Representative Newsom.
If it does switch to May and HAVA isn't used, do we need a new FN that better describes what those costs might actually be?
They don't adopt new fiscal notes until after the floor has adopted an amendment. So even if you requested one, it wouldn't matter.
Okay.
I learned that today at the chairs meeting that I sometimes regularly attend. Further discussion on the motion of ought to pass on House Bill 1541. Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll on the motion of ought to pass on House Bill 1541.
Vice Chairman Quayle.
Yes.
Representative Perdomo Bryan.
Yes.
Clerk says yes. Representative Wary.
Yes.
Representative Wood.
Yes.
Representative C.
Yes.
Representative Gozowski.
Yes.
Representative Plant.
Yes.
Representative Sweeney.
Yes.
Representative Lane.
Yes.
Representative Ward.
Yes.
Representative Gilmore.
Yes.
Representative Muirhead.
Yes.
Representative Bay. Yes. Representative Wilhelm.
Yes.
Representative Newsom.
Yes.
Chairman Barry.
Chair votes yes. The motion carries on a vote of 17 to 0. Without objection, the bill will be placed on the consent calendar. The bill will be placed on consent calendar. Representative Weir, you'll be responsible for the majority report. The executive session for House Bill 1541 is closed. Are there any more contentious bills?
Yeah.
There are. Which one? I'm trying to get our subs out of here. 1257. Okay. Okay. All right. Yeah, I'm trying to get our subs out of here. So we'll open up the executive session for House Bill 1257, requiring that candidates for state representative and state senator live in the district for which they seek election for at least 2 years. Recognize Representative C for a motion. I'm sorry, do you have an amendment, Representative Lane, you wanted to bring? Okay, I'm sorry. Hold on, that Representative C. We're gonna extend our members of courtesy. Representative Bay is recognized for a motion.
I'd like to make a motion of pass.
Ought to pass. Representative Bay says moves ought to pass. Representative Lane seconds the motion. Representative Bay, would you like to move an amendment?
Yes, please. This is an amendment 2026-0622, and the purpose of this amendment is to cover the concern that I had when Representative Gale presented the original bill, where because I live in a city where we have one ward districts, and this will prevent and I'd like to for candidates who will be running within the city to be able to run even if they move to that ward, because it's close by.
All right, is there a second on the amendment? I think there was. Representative Lane seconded.
You volunteered.
All right, I volunteer. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize, Representative Lane. Do you want me to pass that second on to somebody else? I'm happy to do it. We're on discussion on the motion of. We're on discussion on the amendment. Is there further discussion on Amendment 2026-0622H? Representative Lane, you recognize?
Yeah, thank you. So this does address that issue. However, I don't think it addresses the issue, and I know this will really bother the chair. I moved from one single district to another single ward district and had not lived there 2 years. So I would not have been able to have been elected. I know, but it was all within Concord. But for that reason, I'll vote for the amendment, but I will probably not be voting for the bill. So,
is there further discussion on the amendment? Our rules allow us to adopt amendments on a voice vote. Is there any objection to the bill, the amendment being adopted on a voice vote? Hearing none, all in favor of adopting Amendment 2026-0622H to House Bill 1257, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. Representative Bay is recognized for a motion.
I'd like to make a motion of ought to pass with amendments.
Representative Bay moves moves House Bill 1257 be ought to pass as amended with Amendment 2026-0622H. Is there a second? Is there a second? Hearing no second, the motion fails. Representative C is recognized for a motion.
I'll make a motion for ITL.
Representative C moves House Bill 1257 be inexpedient to legislate. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Representative Weary seconds. Is there any discussion on the motion of inexpedient to legislate on House Bill 1257? Representative C is recognized.
Yes, this is just sort of a nitpicking type of issue that really doesn't matter all that much. You know, you already have to be in your district for at least 5 months just simply because of the filing deadline. So it's not really that important that we enact this.
Is there further discussion on the motion of inexpedient to legislate on House Bill 1257? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll on the motion of inexpedient to legislate on House Bill 1257.
Vice Chairman Quayle.
This is on the ITL motion.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct. Yeah, oh yes?
Yes.
Is that a yes?
That
I'm
was
sorry.
a yes. Sorry.
Clerk says yes. Representative Wary,
Yes.
Representative Wood,
Yes.
Representative C,
Yes.
Representative Kozowski,
Yes.
Representative Plant,
Yes.
Representative Sweeney,
Yes.
Representative Lane,
yes.
Representative Ward,
Yes.
Representative Gilmore,
Yes.
Representative Muirhead,
Yes.
Representative Bay,
Yes.
Representative Wilhelm,
Yes.
Representative Newsom,
Yes.
Chairman Barry,
Chair votes yes. The motion carries on a vote of 17-0. Representative C, you will be responsible for the ITL majority report. Will there be a minority report? Hearing none, is there any objection to the bill being placed on the consent calendar? 16-0. What did I say? Yeah. I didn't say minority. I was asking. I didn't know if she wanted the right one. 16-0. Is there any objection to the bill being placed on the consent calendar? Hearing none, the bill will be placed on the consent calendar. Just say that if a minority report is generated, then it can't go on the consent calendar. That was more of my point. I didn't know if there was if the member wanted to make a point, and the member is certainly allowed to do so, and I have certainly done that myself, so I wouldn't view that as a bad thing. Representative Grill is missing, and Representative Perdomo Bryan was out.
Okay, sorry. Thanks.
Okay, the executive session for 1257 is closed. I think there's only one other contested bill, and then we can get our subs out of here, and it may not even be contested. So we will open the executive session for House Bill 1298, relative to the disposal of electronic ballot counting device external memory devices, and Representative Perdomo Bryan has an amendment. So I will make the motion of ought to pass on House Bill 1298. Is there a second? Representative Weary seconds. I would like to move. Okay, we're just gonna pass it.
There's an amendment.
We're just gonna pass it. Yeah, but does anybody want to move it? It's just the sponsor of the amendment left, so that's the confusion.
Okay, I will move it.
Okay.
I will move the amendment.
Representative Quayle moves amendment 2026-0603H to House Bill 1298. Is there a second? I will second the motion. Representative Quayle, would you like to speak to the amendment?
My understanding, and having read it, that this amendment attempts to address the question of how memory cards from legacy ballot counting machines, such as are still used in many towns for a little while into the future, whether those memory cards should be treated differently from the memory devices that record images, which is the way we're moving to, and sometimes we've already adopted that. So the reason for making that exception is that the memory cards from the legacy machines, we heard testimony from the Secretary of State that they tend to be very expensive, in the order of hundreds of dollars. So it's an attempt to save towns who are still using those machines for a little while into the future from having to spend hundreds of dollars to destroy those cards before their usefulness is gone. And also, we're also told that these cards are getting hard to find. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Further discussion on the amendment, or Representative Lane?
I understand the intent, but I don't, the language on lines 12 through 14, it says they shall not be disposed of in the same manner as ballots, but it doesn't say how they're going to be disposed of. So if I was coming to this cold and didn't know the background about the AccuVote machines, I would wonder, so how am I supposed to do that? And what's required? It's not clear.
Further discussion on the amendment?
Mr. Chairman?
Yep, go ahead.
My thought on that is that these cards do have to be disposed of at some point already. And I'm not familiar with the method that's established, but since they do have to be disposed eventually, each of them, I am willing to accept that there is a method for doing so that is described and that the clerks know how to do it. So that's my thought in response to that worthwhile and interesting concern. Thank you.
Representative Weary?
Yeah. If I remember correctly, we heard testimony that those types of memory storage devices are overwritten in subsequent use during subsequent elections, and so I think that's the concept was that they wanted to be able to reuse these as needed, and not physically dispose of them the same way that the other memory devices would be disposed of.
Further discussion on the amendment? Representative Lane?
Where is it in the operations manual that they talk about what to do with these? I guess I'm just not sure. How do people know? Where do they? I know that's the practice, but how do they know it's the practice?
It's in one of the RSAs.
There's an RSA about, because it's a 3-year rule. There's an RSA about it. RSA 659.95. 659.95.
And it says you can wipe them.
It talks about the disposal of ballots.
But it doesn't talk about the cards.
Well, that's what the amendment does.
Okay.
Is it makes it in the same manner. So hold on, that's not the right section. No, it's not right. Hold on.
since this isn't an early bill, might
Yeah, we'll just recess it and
suggest
come
that
back
we
to it.
recess it and
We'll recess this and come back to it.
And I'll be happy to.
That's
work
all right.
with her if
My
she
apologies to our
wants.
subs. I'm sorry, we're not very organized today. Something like this. All right, we're recessed on 1298. I don't think we have any other contested bill for our subs, so our subs can get out of here. I don't eat you guys up anymore.
If they so choose.
If they want to.
It's the pleasure of an 87.
What? Who did what? This is. Yep. Okay, I'm going to open the executive session for House Bill 1082, enabling municipalities to remove political signs from state-owned property located within the municipality after an election. Recognize Representative Quayle for the purpose of the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that the committee find this bill inexpedient to legislate.
Is there a second? Representative Wood seconds. Is there discussion on the motion of inexpedient to legislate on House Bill 1082?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill proposes to amend RSA 664-17 to add language authorizing municipalities to remove, quote, any political advertising remaining on any public property, including highway rights-of-way or state-owned property, after the second Friday following the election. There are two concerns I have with this bill causing me to recommend ITL. One is that the bill is essentially redundant because RSA 664-17 already authorizes city or town, quote, maintenance or law enforcement personnel to remove political advertising from, quote, any public property, unquote, and with no time constraints. An additional concern that I think should be considered is that it also would allow municipalities to remove any political advertising on property, including highway rights of way. Well, not all highway rights of way they don't all include ownership of the underlying property. Some of that is still private property. So this would have the potential of possibly disregarding the property rights of those who own the underlying property to a highway right of way. So for these reasons, it's my view that this bill should be found inexpedient to legislate. Thank you very much.
Further discussion on the motion of inexpedient to legislate on House Bill 1082? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll on the motion of inexpedient to legislate on House Bill 1082.
Vice Chairman Quayle.
Yes.
Clerk says yes. Representative Wary.
Yes.
Representative Wood.
Yes.
Representative C.
Yes.
Representative Gozowski.
Yes.
Representative Lane.
Yes.
Representative Ward.
Yes.
Representative Gilmore.
Yes.
Representative Muirhead.
Yes.
Representative Bay.
Yes.
Representative Wilhelm.
Yes.
Representative Newsom.
Yes.
Chairman Barry.
Chair votes yes. The bill will be reported out as inexpedient to legislate on a vote of 14 to 0. Is there any objection to this bill being placed on the consent calendar? Hearing none, the bill will be placed on the consent calendar. The executive session for House Bill 1082 is closed. Going to open the executive session for House Bill 1326 relative to special elections. Recognize. That's my bill. I'll kill it. I will make the motion of inexpedient to legislate. Is there a second? Second. Representative Muirhead eagerly seconds the motion of inexpedient to legislate. Is there any discussion on the motion of inexpedient to legislate on House Bill 1326? What's going on?
Stop.
Yes, what's going on?
I'm so sorry, but I couldn't even.
1326.
Yes, thank you.
It's okay. It's gonna.
I'm fighting with
The paper clip? Okay, fair enough. 26. Relative to special elections. Train's leaving the station.
Just to clarify, this is not your bill, but this is your bill to kill.
I believe I'm on the bill.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
No.
Am I not?
No.
I'm not?
I think you're on the next one, 1381. Unless you skipped one.
We already killed 1381. Oh, we already passed it. We recessed it. We recessed it. Excuse me.
No, you're right.
1381? Oh, party filing. Okay, I scratched off the wrong filing period. That was for the candidacy. That was the three-day one I was thinking of. I was looking at the title, not the number. My apologies. I can't do the numbers. I do the titles. Like these people, the numbers just like jumble in my head. But we are on 1326. I know that.
I mean, I can't even break that.
Very good.
ITL.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there any? Are you ready now, Madam Clerk?
I am now ready.
Okay. Is there any discussion on the motion of inexpedient to legislate on House Bill 1326? Hearing no discussion, because you can do that for a bill. That's probably going on consent calendar. You can make a motion and you don't have to talk.
Right.
Would the clerk call the roll for the motion of any speed to legislate on House Bill 1326?
Yes. Vice Chairman Quayle.
Yes.
Clerk says yes. Representative Weary.
Yes.
Representative Wood.
Yes.
Representative C.
Yes.
Representative Kozowski.
Yes.
Representative Lane.
Yes.
Representative Ward.
Yes.
Representative Gilmore.
Yes.
Representative Muirhead.
Yes.
Representative Bay.
Yes.
Representative Wilhelm.
Yes.
Representative Newsom.
Yes.
Chairman Barry.
Chair votes yes. The bill will be reported out as any expedient to legislate on a vote of 14 to 0. Is there any objection to the bill being placed on the consent calendar? Hearing none, the bill will be placed on the consent calendar. I will be responsible for the very brief majority report. The executive session for House Bill 1326 is closed. What do we got left here? We're going to open the executive session for CACR 31 relating to ballot reconciliation, providing that the state adopts certain provisions and penalties relative to the ballot reconciliation process. And I will recognize Representative C for a motion.
I move ITL.
Representative C moves any expedient to legislate on CACR 31. Is there a second?
Second.
I will take Representative Newsom for a very nice bipartisan second. We're now in discussion on the motion of any expedient to legislate on House Bill on CACR 31. Is there discussion on the motion of any expedient to legislate? Representative C.
Yes, this is kind of an interesting concept of taking a presidential executive order and trying to force it into our Constitution. But this has about 20 provisions, one of which is to not allow voting machines. Another is to require that no polling place be larger than 5,000 voters. So while some people may think that any of these are laudable goals, I don't think they should be in our Constitution because presidential executive orders are sometimes superseded or canceled or other things in a rather short time thing, and the Constitution is a long-term contract. So for that reason, ITL is the motion.
Okay, is there further discussion on the motion of inexpedient to legislate on CACR 31? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll on the motion of inexpedient to legislate on CACR 31.
Vice Chairman Quayle.
Yes.
Clerk says yes. Representative Weary.
Yes.
Representative Wood.
Yes.
Representative C.
Yes.
Representative Kozowski.
Yes.
Representative Lane.
Yes.
Representative Ward.
Yes.
Representative Gilmore.
Yes.
Representative Muirhead.
Yes.
Representative Bay.
Yes.
Representative Wilhelm.
Yes.
Representative Newsom.
Yes.
Chairman Barry.
Chair votes yes. The motion of inexpedient to legislate carries on a vote of 14 to 0. Is there any objection to this bill being placed on the consent calendar? Hearing none, the bill will be placed on consent calendar. Representative C, you'll be responsible for the committee report.
Just the question is, constitutional amendments allowed to be on?
They are when they are inexpedient to legislate.
Okay, thank you.
Anything can die on the consent calendar. Things just can't pass. The executive session for CACR 31 is closed. I think we have 1381 left. Okay, 1381. Yes, Madam Clerk. Which is I wrote my notes on 1381 and I shouldn't have done that. That's why I got confused. Going to open the executive session on House Bill 1381, extending the time of the party filing period, and I will make the motion of ought to pass. Is there a second? Representative Wilhelm eagerly seconds the bill. Is there discussion on the motion of ought to pass on House Bill 1381? Hearing no discussion, the clerk will call the roll on the motion of ought to pass on House Bill 1381 when the clerk is ready.
Thank you. The clerk appreciates the slower version. Okay, Vice Chair Quayle.
Yes.
Clerk says yes. Representative Wary.
Yes.
Representative Wood.
Yes.
Representative C.
Yes.
Representative Kozowski.
Yes.
Representative Lane.
Yes.
Representative Ward.
Yes.
Representative Gilmore.
Yes.
Representative Muirhead.
Yes.
Representative Bay.
Yes.
Representative Wilhelm.
Yes.
Representative Newsom.
Yes.
Chairman Barry.
Chair votes yes. The motion of ought to pass carries on a vote of 14-0 without objection. This bill will be placed on the consent calendar. I will be responsible for the committee report. The executive session for House Bill 1381 is closed. I'm going to reopen the executive session from earlier today regarding House Bill 1391, establishing a commission to study the implementation of a single ballot primary election. And as I said, after we immediately heard the bill, I am open to establishing a subcommittee in this committee if I get 5 members that are willing to be on it, but it does have to be bipartisan. So are there 5 members who would like to be on a subcommittee to study this bill and this issue? 1. 2.
We disagree a lot.
I will not be on it. I am already maxed out, as you can tell by my sporadic report. 3. So we need 2 Republicans now. You've got 3 Democrats, so you know that you've already got 3 there. There are 2 Republicans. All right. I don't see any 2 Republicans, so I will recess the executive session. That's all of our bills for today. We are meeting next week. I will be back on point next week. I had a lot of stuff in my personal life this last week, which resulted in a little bit of chaos today on my end. I apologize. Next week will be the last hearing, our last days of hearings for bills we haven't had a hearing on. You have your last day of hearings for public hearings. Yeah, we still have exec after that. No.
Oh my God!
Yeah. There will not be a school vacation week before somebody messages me and gets mad. I've done that before. I enjoy meeting on school vacation week, but not everybody else. All right. Any other questions, comments, concerns? 10 a.m. next week. We'll see you guys there. We are adjourned? I don't know. We're done.